Welcome to number 4 in our series of Finances and the Church. My name is Erin Bender. I'm a ministry consultant with over 25 years of experience in churches from coast to coast and the Cokesbury Publishing House. Today's session will cover special funds and budgets. Many people in our local churches are so appreciative of the church and the continuation of ministry, but they can also be unaware of the sacred trust which our treasurers are living out as they pay the bills and keep track of where the church's money comes from and where it is going as we continue to praise God for God's own gifts of grace and love. In today's session, we will discuss the funds that are part of a local church and also legal issues regarding that special funding. And finally, you'll follow up your learning with discussion questions. We've taken a look at the general budget in a previous video, but we still have a few more items to review. There are building funds, endowments, designated, restricted, and regular funds. So many buckets. The most important thing to remember is that all money that is given to the church through parishioners, grants, or special gifts is to be accounted for under the manner in which it was given with the proper bookkeeping. Again, the treasurer doesn't make the decisions about how to budget the gifts, but it is essential for the treasurer to follow the guidelines on how that money is spent. Most everyone knows that the church is legally bound to use funds in the way the donor requested the money be used. To fail to do so can carry penalties for breach of fiduciary duty or worse, fraud. And of course, it's the right and moral thing to do. Want to lose the trust of your church? The misappropriation of funds will put you on that road. What I want to bring out today are the types of designated giving, times when designated giving is not tax deductible, and how the church may redirect designated giving. A side note, although most pastors, staff, and church members use the term designated to describe any monetary gift given for a certain purpose, there are actually two types of gifts that can be directed to specific ministries and projects: designated and restricted. Designated funds are specific funds which can only be used in the manner the giver directs upon the request of the church. These donations are tax deductible. Restricted funds, on the other hand, are specific funds which can only be used in the manner that the giver directs. However, the church did not request monies for that purpose. Those donations then are indeed taxable. Understanding the difference between a designated fund and a restricted fund is an essential skill for any church treasurer. Churches are required to use both designated and restricted donations as the donor intended. The difference between them, per the IRS, has to do with who ultimately controls the use of the funds. This difference impacts the donor's ability to deduct the gift. Designated gifts are tax deductible, but restricted gifts are not. And again, the key difference is who has control over the donated funds. If the church has control, then they're tax deductible. If the donor has control, then they are not tax deductible. For example, gifts and designations to ministries such as mission, children's ministry, music ministry are designated gifts. Let's say a donor wished for a gift to be used for a youth mission trip, but the church controls the who, what, when, where, and how. It's designated and therefore deductible. Restricted gifts, on the other hand, generally are unsolicited donations that direct the funds specifically. For example, the donor directs the funds to be used for a named individual, such as the victim of a house fire, or to purchase something specific, a piano, for example. In these cases, the donor controls the who, what, when, and how. It's therefore restricted and not deductible because the donor not the nonprofit organization, directs the gift's use. For instance, a woman wishes for a ramp to be built in her husband's memory, but the church already has a ramp and has no plans to build one. The gift to put in a new ramp is her gift under her direction, and therefore it's restricted and not deductible. The church must honor both designated and restricted regardless. It's just that one is tax deductible and the other is not. I suspect that there exists misunderstanding and misapplication of these terms in most churches. So, to eliminate any misunderstanding, I recommend a statement like this in your funding policy. This church is a qualified 501c3 organization. All tithes, offerings, or donations of any kind are deductible under IRC Section 170C2. Unless otherwise noted, and in accordance with IRS regulation, you agree to relinquish control of the donated funds to the discretion of this church. For even further clarification in your funding policy, consider adding this additional statement. For donors who restrict their unsolicited donations to a specific use or person, i.e., does not relinquish control of the donated funds, the donation is considered a restricted donation and as such is not a tax-deductible contribution. The next topic on giving is endowment. Endowments are an income or form of property given or bequeathed to someone. Endowments are another form of designated giving in which the principal or first donation is left untouched in an account, and the interest can be spent in the manner requested by the donor. Working with endowments highlights the need for a thorough understanding of designated funds. The endowment itself is designated, again, tax deductible, but allows the interest to be used in the manner requested by the donor's heirs. Think back to the two examples of restricted gifts. If the church has a need to purchase something specific or is aware of an individual that needs help, it's better for the church to solicit the funds for the specific item, say a piano or playground equipment or a benevolent need without divulging names. Then the donations fall under designated because the church is controlling the donations and therefore are tax deductible. In other words, any appeal initiated by the church is considered designated. This applies to building campaigns, renovation projects, mission trips, ministry needs, and so on. It's worth noting, too, that just because the church initiated it and placed the designation, it cannot simply redirect the funds elsewhere at any point once they've been given. The church is morally and legally bound to its own designation. Other designated funds, like building funds, are legally bound to be used only for that purpose. Funds that come from the sale of a church property are only to be used for the building and not for the day-to-day business of the church. There are times when a church may find it needs to redirect designated or restricted funds to other areas. In absence of a policy stating otherwise, there are only 3 ways to redirect designated funds: by the written permission of the donors, by court order, or with the permission of your state attorney general. In some cases, this may prove difficult or nearly impossible. It's just not practical when some donors may be opposed to the redesignation or others are no longer living. The church can avoid complications in these situations by including a statement like this in their fund policy. The board or finance team of the church may remove any designations or restrictions on gifts when it is deemed in the best interest of the church to do so. This policy, once adopted by the church, gives church leadership the discretion to redirect funds. In addition, state or reference this policy on all giving documents, receipts, and fundraising materials. That way, everyone knows, or is reminded, up front the church reserves the right to redirect funds. The donor relinquishes control anyway if they were tax-deductible contributions. However, this still doesn't give the church carte blanche to do what it wants, when and how it wants. What it does do is to give the church the ability to redirect funds in certain circumstances without necessarily having to obtain permission from the donors, courts, or the state attorney general.
Parishioners may look to you for clarification about the terms designated and restricted with your church council and pastor. Use judgment and discretion in each case. You want to honor and maintain the trust of your givers while recognizing the eventuality of the need to redirect funds. Otherwise, you may end up with funds that can't be used, and that's not good stewardship.
Consider the following questions as you think about what you've learned about special funds in the church. First, what are the 5 types of funds in the local church? Second, how do you know the difference between designated and restricted funds? Third, can the building fund be used to supplement the pastor's salary if the regular fund is too low? Why do you think that is? Fourth, what are the benefits and drawbacks of an endowment? And fifth, what is the role of the treasurer in regards to the special funds?
Thank you for spending the time with us as we discuss special funds and budgets. I look forward to seeing you next time for session 5.